Thinking about when my brother moved. Elspeth is sister to Stan. Stan lived for many years in a village community in the northeast. Stan and Elspeth's parents played a key role in the original building of the village, fundraising alongside other families. As talk of the village's long term future began, the organisation running the village began to explore smaller community options. Stan, his sister Elspeth, and his parents took advantage of the opportunity to think about life beyond the village. Stan was considered for a new house in Whitley Bay with five others he knew from the village. What did it feel like knowing that Stan might be moving on? So, I think there was a range of reactions, but because of my experiences working in social care, I was quite positive about it. I think I needed reassurance that it was possibly more to do with staffing levels and risk. I remember we went through all sorts of conversations about Stan being home alone and what the procedures would be and that sort of thing. I think my parents were probably a little bit surprised because I think for them, they thought the village was it. Sorry to bring Mary into this, but they knew Mary was going. So, on the one hand, that was really positive. Stan and Mary lived together for almost 40 years, so they were reassured because they knew Stan and Mary got on. But then they looked at how able Mary was, and they were thinking, how on earth can you have something that will fulfill everything with such different levels of need? So there were questions, I guess, but overall, my parents were always very good. They've both passed away now, but they always wanted Stan to have a life as near to everybody else's as possible, and they saw the move as part of that step. They had always had a good experience of the organisation supporting Stan, so they really trusted them to make the right decision and for Stan to make his own decision. He made it really clear that he wanted to go, and that's always been the main thing. I'm not going to dress it up. It's okay to be anxious about it. Of course, you would be anxious. I'm still anxious about things that happen for Stan. Is he getting the right care? Is he happy? COVID was an absolute nightmare. For his 60th birthday, I had to wave to him through the window. So it's absolutely normal to be anxious. So, as the move became more real, what helped in the planning of that move? What helped Stan, you, and the family? Well, I wasn't living in the Northeast at the time, but my recollections are that my parents and me were kept very well informed. I think the team leader, who would be leading the team in the house, was appointed fairly quickly before the move. So there was a point of contact for my parents and any concerns they had. I think communication was good and that helped. The fact that Miles was moving with people that he knew helped. They did spend some time thinking about how it was going to work and who would be living there. So the fact that the group was identified for us, that was reassuring. And especially that Mary was moving in. My parents were friendly with Mary's parents through fundraising for the village. So the fact that he was moving in with people he knew and had relationships with was really, really important. If I reflect on it now, I think I would have been more concerned if it was just like a random, like, he's going to have his own little place. But I think there was a bit of reassurance. 6 people is probably big by today's standards, but we were reassured that there was going to be a bit of a family group. He's always been a bit of a loner, and that's okay, but he has got relationships with the people he lives with. The fact that the same organisation was supporting Stan really helped. My family were very committed to the organisation. The manager of the village was good, so having the same people around really helped. They had a lot of trust in the organisation. If they didn't trust the organisation, it might have been different. What about new staff learning about what really matters to Stan, his interests, his health? I think again, it was having confidence in the organisation and also knowing the people. I'm pretty sure there was lots of communication about who was going to be employed. Staff who were already working at the village went to work there. It wasn't a completely new staff team. So things like that, continuity, and people knowing Stan. There was a bit of a connection with the main village site. It was still a significant drive, but a bit of a connection with the mothership. Obviously, that's gone now, and it's fine. Okay, so from your perspective, what were the good bits when Stan was moving for you and for Stan? In no particular order, the environment. The house was purpose built. In some respects, if you take over an old house, you've got problems with that. And it was kind of purpose built. You know, I don't like the fire doors. I don't like that. But I do get why that's got to be like that. If I'm honest, I would have preferred, and I do remember my parents being a little worried about this, but it was a minor thing. I regret the lack of a garden. He was brought up in a fairly sort of rural environment. And during COVID, when I was allowed to visit and we were sitting outside, we were sitting in this horrible, well, not horrible, but not very nice bit at the back. So I think I would have liked to have had a garden because he does like sitting out in the sun. I don't think he does that. So the homely environment, the fact that there were opportunities for him to just participate. The spa is just around the corner. There's a pub across the way. He prefers the one a little further down. It was that opportunity that you could just walk to them. He never does those things unaccompanied, and I didn't really expect him ever to, but that's okay because if you've got the staffing levels right, it's still nice to be able to just access stuff in the community. I think the opportunities in terms of jobs and daycare from his perspective, it's a little bit swings in roundabouts because I think actually Stan is the kind of person who benefited from the sort of sheltered workshop thing in the village. He really liked working in the laundry and he really liked working in the craft shop. And the fact he could just walk across them was good. However, he's had more opportunities to go to college, to do much broader things, to do different things. So that's a positive thing. It's a smaller number of people he lives with, a smaller staff team. So the relationships are good. He has had more opportunities to do things for himself, to be more independent. I think this means more to me than it does to Stan. The fact that he's a tenant in his own home, it's just more in line with normality. I don't want to use the word normality, but you know what I mean. When they moved in, there was a lot of communication. Stan had a lot of visits. My parents visited and were keen to contribute. There was involvement with families. Life now. What does Stan enjoy about life now and what's your perspective? Well, I guess it's his secure. place. There are some changes at the moment, new staff, etc. And Stan will deal with things by saying that he doesn't want to go out for a planned trip. It's not that he doesn't want to go, that's often his way of telling you that he's unhappy about something else. I remember one time, a brief time, that he said, I want to go back to the village. I think there was something else that he was unhappy about. They did visit, and he had a look at what was going on and then settled back down. Other than that period, he's been really happy here. There have been ups and downs. It's easy for him to access stuff. He's settled with the people he lives with. He's a little bit unsettled now, but COVID hasn't helped. All of the stuff he was doing through the day was completely wiped out. He likes novelty, but he doesn't like change. He still lives with people he's very fond of. It's a smaller setup from a family perspective. It's really easy to make good relationships with the staff. It's a really nice place to live, a nice town. He bumps into people he knows in the spa. It's easy to access things he wants to. In terms of the way the support is structured, which he never really had at the village, he has regular one to one time. There's far more opportunity to do individual things. At the village, everything was like a big car journey, often shared with others, and things had to be planned as outings. Now he can just walk out of the house. So even if it's just a couple of hours of one to one support, they can actually do quite a lot. Just far more opportunity to do individualized things in the community. It's interesting, just even reflecting on it, as the village was good and there were things that he liked, like the workshop. It just wasn't as individualized. Because he has structured one to one time, his package of care is very much based on what he needs. It's not lumped in with everybody else. And yes, he has shared care hours, and yes, his one to ones has to cover if he needs to go to the doctor or the dentist, etc. But there is still time, and that's more individualized than it ever was. What does Stan miss? What do you miss about the village? Oh, a garden and outside space. He does okay with that because he gets out and about. Probably the workshops and the laundry and the craft workshop. His ideal day would have been to spend the day in a fabric shop. So he did like the laundry and craft, but that's about his interests and I guess not particularly the space. So apart from the outside space, I don't think he misses anything. The distance from the village to his new house didn't really make much difference because my parents and I lived quite far away. But for some families, it meant they were closer and they were saved a trek for visits. So, thinking back, is there anything you would have done differently? No. Where Stan lives is the second place that the organisation who ran the village have moved people to. So, it was well thought through. The outdoors space, we do that differently, but it wasn't a deal breaker. There's a big park where he lives now, and you can get houses without gardens. What top tips would you give other families facing or planning a move? Making a good relationship with the key people. I always come from that point of view that people will be doing the best they can. The occasional brave person who supports Stan tells me they know him better than me. Then I have to reflect that actually they see him a lot more than me, so they have a different perspective from me. They don't know him better, just differently. I think from a family perspective, it's really is making those good relationships so you can make sure the support, the house, etc., is right. Try and be as open-minded as you can. If there's a problem, it's about working together to get a positive solution. Even with with really good staff ratios in a big place where lots of people live, it's easy to get lost and overlooked. So a move might be a really good opportunity to really personalize the support. Another bit of advice is to think back to what you wanted when your loved one moved into their old place. In Stan's case, the village, rather than thinking about what it's like now, Stan could have stayed at that village for longer. But we took a really, really big step back and thought, what do we want for Stan? What are the fundamental things? A good quality of life, to be safe, to have opportunities, and to live as normal a life as possible. I mean, I don't want to sound melodramatic, but my parents are both gone now. And one of the last things that my dad said to me was, look after my boy. As a family, we want him to feel safe. We've learned safety doesn't come from where you are, it comes from who you are with and who supports you.